So far we talked about many different topics. I think the first session we talked about how you can integrate the supply chain after merger and acquisition，就是说在你并购了之后，如何做供应链的整合。那实质上针对供应链整合这个题目呢，好多国外的跨国公司，像记忆。General Electric, they have purchased and many companies, and they have had a lot of merger and acquisition, and they have many different business lines. I also had a long discussion with Mr. Fountain about how they do the integration. And through supply chain integration, you can really gain efficiency and realize the benefits of merger and acquisition. And supply chain integration is really very much a strategic issue because without integration, your merger and acquisition can never be successful. That's the first topic. Okay. So for those of you who were not here yesterday, I'm trying to give you a summary so that you get the whole picture. Okay. And then the second topic we discussed is how do you achieve sustainability through collaborative innovation in the supply chain. And if you collaborate, you will be able to find wider solutions through product, process, and the supply chain innovation or business model innovation. You will be able to improve your performance in multiple dimensions. At the same time, you will be able to achieve the three bottom lines, right? Did you take notes on that? Okay, so that's the second topic. And then in the afternoon, we also had a topic of supply chain financing. And in supply chain management, oftentimes we work a lot, it's including us, when we teach supply chain management, we focus on the goods flow, the information flow, but we pay very little attention to the financial flow. But that flow actually is very, very important. And yesterday, several companies showed us very innovative approach to manage the financial flow as well as the information and the goods flow. And I think that session was very well received. And then this morning, I monitored the session of supply chain innovation based on information platform. I think all of us get so excited. Okay, three quite different companies, a pharmaceutical company, and then a furniture company, and then a coal company. They all innovated in quite different ways in the supply chain, and the supply chain innovation actually is really supporting their business model innovation. Okay, and then we also had a session on cross-border e-commerce supply chain, and that was also very, very interesting and very exciting. And then the last three speakers, they were looking at how to improve the supply chain through collaboration from the perspective of the manufacturing company, that's higher, and then from the trading logistic company, that's higher, and the DHL. And through these wonderful cases we had in the past two days, today is not over yet, you can learn some common lessons. Okay, so here I'm going to kind of give the opportunity for you to ask them some questions. And I'll try to start first because we have two new panelists who have not gotten a chance to speak yet. So first, I'd like to ask Mr. Fountain, based on your experience, what are some of the challenges and some of the lessons that you can kind of share with us in terms of supply chain integration, especially after merger and acquisition?
Yeah. Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. We always say that we keep the best for the end, and I feel very pleased to be one of the last speakers. Today.
Yeah, you are the best.
Thank you. But on the other hand, this is Friday evening, it's getting late, so I'm going to try to make it short. Mm-hmm. Talking about integration, as you mentioned, we in GE are making a lot of acquisitions in the last 130 years. And it's one of our key strategies to make acquisition. And when you make acquisition, you really expect to make benefits out of this acquisition. We always say 1 + 1 should be 3. It sounds very simple. It looks nice on the charts. Usually our financial team, they make nice savings opportunities during the deal, during the BD deal, during the study of the deal. And what you quickly realize is most of the benefits or savings are coming from supply chain. And there is one thing in my mind where it's complex. It's culture difference. I think when you make an acquisition of another company, the culture is very different. And we in GE, we have a very, very strong culture. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know how to say that, but we believe our culture is one of the best. So we believe that the other guy should take our culture. So it presents some complexity. But that's the complexity. The good news is supply chain people around the world from different companies, usually they speak the same language. They speak about safety, they speak about fulfillment, they speak about quality and cost. So that's, if you stick to basics around these 4 things, that's helped a lot. Just because the benefits, the savings are coming from these things. Fulfillment, quality, cost, and safety. So I think I just want to make it short because I know we are running out of time. But complexity is culture, language, barrier. We are a very large global company. We make global acquisitions. So you buy a company where the headquarters is based in US or Western Europe, and then you inherit a factory somewhere in Southeast Asia, for example. Then you don't want to forget this. But that's the complexity of cultural difference. The good things, again, I think that, and these 2 days, I hope you realize this, supply chain people are talking the same language. If you talk about basics, things around supply chain.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to give the opportunity to Professor Zhang Huimin, who has done a lot of different projects with different companies. I think he knows Li and Feng very well, DHL very well, Haier not as well as me, and maybe also know GE very well. So based on the topics we discussed and the cases you have kind of glanced through, what advice can you give to companies as to how they can really gain competitive advantage through collaborative innovation?
Well, thank you. We have all these practitioners and experienced executives here. I dare to talk about practices. So I'd rather talk about potential opportunities and challenges that actually have been mentioned throughout the forum, things like big data, analytics, and so on. Actually, around 3 decades ago, we know logistics is not just about moving things. We realize the importance of also moving information and the financial flow. And Professor Zhao mentioned we have also discussed the supply chain or logistic finance. To me, data and finance, they're the same thing. They're just data. I think logistic is about coordination. The importance is being able to synchronize the flow, synchronize the physical flow, the information flow, and the financial flow. We have a huge opportunity in front of us. Some of our speakers has mentioned about big data. That is something big, but it's also challenging. A lot of time we actually realize, like I said, three decades ago, how important data are with logistics and supply chain. Just that now we have, because all transactions are done electronically, so we have intentionally or even unintentionally has collected a lot of data more than we know. And we just started to realize we are having this data. When we collect them, we don't have a specific purpose. But now some of us has identified use of this unintentionally collected data. And these data with a nature that they are high speed, They are unstructured without a format, and we don't know what they mean individually, but putting together might mean something. These are the challenge ahead of us. If we are able to not only make use of the traditional business data, but also the data with those characteristics, then we can certainly solve a lot of problem about collaborations, about knowing our supply chain better, and so on. But the challenge is these data are unintentionally collected. They are in high volume, high speed, and we need a decision, like Tommy said, probably real time before you can make sense out of your big data. The decision has to be made already. So all these are our challenge. Plus, one more, if you follow the news recently, we have this incidence of people's photos being hacked from iPhone's iCloud. Now, this is also a warning to all of us. We just realized the power of big data, but very soon we will be liable in some way for keeping this data. You know, well, we don't want to give up the data, but then we are liable for having the data in the future. So, so from an academic, I think this is great opportunities. At the same time, we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. Thank you.
谢谢张教授。现在呢，我想变成中文，然后除了我问之外呢，要叫你们来问。OK， 那你们这2天听了好多，肯定是有一些问题。在座的几位有这个教授，也有企业的领导，他们都是专家。对，谁来先问问题？
Oh, on the far right.
Yeah. Where? Oh, over there. There. Yeah, yeah.
不好意思
哎，我们也掌声鼓励一下问问题的啊。OK， 要更多的问问题。
我那个问题肯定就会跟今天那个 topic 就是肯定有点偏差。我想问一下那个基的那位 VP， 就是说您基在12年的时候有一个叫 Industrial Internet。 你到现在已经是14年了，我想这个已经经历了这么久，我也看了一下基，在您的那个网站上也看到基在Industrial Internet 方面做了很多事情。我想问您一个问题，就是说目前来讲，您认为的那个 Industrial Internet 对今天是供应链，我们就谈一下供应链，对供应链是怎么在影响？影响在哪些方面？然后基于在哪些方面应对了那些挑战，或者应对了这个 Industrial Internet 带来的一些冲击？谢谢。
First, thanks for the question. I think this is really a good transition from what you say. I think it's all about big data. I think we in the last 10 years, we thought that data only numbers, financial numbers. Now we start to realize there is data everywhere. If you look at a manufacturing facility, there is data out of every machine tools, out of every processes, inspections. If you look at when your customer are using your product, we make aircraft engines, they fly 24/7. We can collect data. So all these things is how can you use this data? And I think I really like your speech because there is so many data. So how do you select the data? What do you want to collect, and so on. So back to your question more specifically. I think in GE we've got this new initiatives called advanced manufacturing, where we are thinking that this is a time to put together the physical world and the digital world. And the connection between these physical equipments are the data. So how do you put together the digital worlds and the physical world? The physical world of advanced manufacturing is 3D printing. It's new automation, robotics, and so on. That's a physical world. And people start to understand that. But there is a digital world. All this data coming from, again, the machine tools, inspection, and so on. So we try to put this together. It's not a project, it's ongoing now. I can give you example of physical world 3D printing. Someone mentioned 3D printing is today. We are making parts with 3D printer that are used in aircraft engine today, in gas turbine today. So if you fly with a G engine, there is maybe there is parts which is done by 3D printing. On the digital world, we just set up a new factory a year ago making battery in US, and there is no paper in this factory, 0 paper. If you walk the floor, there is no more paper. And every technician, every engineer have access to all the data in a kind of cloud system with a risk of sharing all this data, and it's a big risk, it's a big threat. I don't have to tell you that we are very concerned about all the things happening around the world, about cyber attack and so on. And when you operate in China, you are even more concerned of copyright and so on. So I think there is all the big challenge, but back to your point, I mean, this is really putting together the physical world and the digital world. And I share exactly what the professor said before. There is too many data. So we have to be very practical, back to Tommy, and select only what we need and start. Because when you start to look at all the data coming from just in the manufacturing facility, it's just scary, so many things. The last thing is, Mr. Lim mentioned that we are more and more trying to use data also for preventive maintenance, or what we call now predictive maintenance. So predictive maintenance of our own equipment, manufacturing equipment and so on, but also to our customer. Now we go to airliners, we go to power generation company, and we say we are going to collect the data from the equipment we sold to you, and we'll be able to tell you when your engine needs to be repaired, maintained, or when your gas turbine, when your wind turbine, when your locomotive need to be maintained. So that's I try to.
Thank you for that very elaborate answer. 还有谁想问问题？好。再次掌声鼓励这个问题。
我想问一下我们海尔的林总哈，我知道我们海尔有些地区有承诺24小时送装一体，那么海尔要实现这样的24小时送装一体产生的就是带来的这个成本的变化或者是库存的变化，这个里面是如何控制的？第二个就是说，在这样的送装一体化会不会向全国或更大范围的区域去推广？这样的推广会带来什么样的风险？我还有一个问题就是，我们刚刚提到定制化，那么定制化，海尔在定制化这个层面上，从客户定制到生产制造这个中间是如何协同的？3个问题，谢谢。
很好，你问题问得很好，而且也不容易回答。是这样，送装一体这边里边有这么一个概念。你想一下，当你买了一个洗衣机，今天给你送了，过了2天，他再给你安装。所以我们讲送装一体，就是为了满足客户了。所以送装一体是一个概念。然后24小时承诺达，就是我们有这个能力，承诺给你到达。不过最后呢，快不一定是用户要的。用户可能在成都给你买一个洗衣机，要3天后他回来才给你送。所以我们最后是用户在什么时间需要，我们就什么时间送。只是我们的系统里面有这样一个能力，所以这个是我们提出给客户服务的一种理念。然后在山东这个区域，我们已经在尝试，所以这是提前把我们的能力建起来为了满足用户量需求。从全国的角度来推广，这个当然是有难度。不过我们是叫做什么呢？勇立桥头先敢于人先嘛，就先尝试有这样的一个承诺。那这个不是海尔亲自做的，这是我们的物流商、我们的这个安装售服商，大家要共同一起参与了。所以这样的风险就不是在一家公司了，也就是说我们是服务商是吧？我也物流商，我也服务商，我产品，大家合作给用户提供这么一个承诺。承诺做得好，我们就利益共享；承诺做不好，大家要风险共担。那这样的话呢，就是希望我们能够把业务越做越大，客户越来越多，合作方大家有的分享。所以这个是回答你前面2个问题的我们的一个做法。另外一个你说到个性化定制。 个性化定制呢，在很多产品已经非常成熟了，大家穿的西装绝对可以定制。青岛有一家公司叫红岭，它绝对可以在网上去定制。那定制家具，今天我们听过了，定制这个冰箱也好，白色家电这个还是比较新的。那要能够做到这个呢，有这么几个基础是需要去做的，就是我们的产品是需要模块化的，所以你制造的成本才能够控制得住，否则的话，每一台产品、每一台设备、每一台这个洗衣机也好、冰箱也好，你说个性化定制，这样你的成本就非常高。所以我们要先把它模块化，然后在整个制造的这个过程中要把它标准化，再通过信息化的手段、先进的这种技术，你就能够把这个大规模定制或个性化定制的成本控制下来。然后除了控制下来，我们还得想办法在配送这个环节。因为这个产品一生产出来，必须是送到这个用户的家里面去，绝对不能送错。如果你是大规模定制了，冰箱都一样了，你可以这个冰箱送到这个用户里面去，再去记录这个系列号。所以产品如果一样的话，你在配送这个环节也没有这么复杂。如果你个性化定制，你这个个性化配送这个环节也必须把它从系统、从流程、从合作方你都要把它理清楚。才能够真正的去落地，所以这个也是我们一直尝试往前探索。我们的领导现在都可以探索，就允许犯错，不过你就要在互联网里面不停的探索，不停的创新，所以我现在不知道这样回答你满意吗？
好，谢谢林总，谢谢林总。最后一个问题，谁来提？好。
不好意思，我自己还是很想问一个问题，问的比较直接一点。我的问题是想问我们 DHL 还有立丰物流的部分。第一个问题是，你们两位是竞争者吗？这第一个问题。第二个问题是给 Tommy 的，我为在座的我们这些企业们跟老板问说，为了要达到，如果你可以帮助我们达到降低或者增加41%这个供应链成本的优化的话，透过这种 structure 性质的改变的话，我们要付你多少钱？所以我有这两个问题问一下。
Okay, so are we going to have a deal here? 基本上呢，如果要帮我们的客户呢优化他们的供应链呢，我们不是一次两次这个方法就可以做完的，因为最初我们帮你们优化的时候，我们付出投放大量的这个资源，如果一次的收款呢，我觉得不太合理。还有就是，基本上呢，这个优化呢是一个不断的过程，所以我们通常呢跟你们一起合作的时候，我们就当一位伙伴一样，我们会理解你公司的真正的要求，你真正的商业的环境的情况，所以双方还是要互相交换很多非常秘密的资料，所以我觉得这个合作的关系是非常密切的，不是用收钱你可以描述，所以我觉得这个是一个多年的一个合作关系，我们愿意跟你们谈这个合作关系，我们可以怎么样可以一起分享这个收获。
Thank you for that question, Shelton. So direct. The first part is yes. And a quick answer to the hire. If you want 24-hour delivery, then you should DHL it. And really, what we're talking about is collaboration. And let's look at the bigger picture here. The big prize is not the small independent contract. The big prize is about the contracts that go around a supply chain. So that's where we look at these situations about being a lead logistics provider, which is where a company with a global reach like DHL or some of the other larger players are able to integrate global supply chains and integrate regional players into those global supply chains by acting as the leading and the lead logistics provider. And that's where, yes, I think, yes, it is obvious we are competitors, but I think the key and the future is about being collaborators on global supply chains.
Thank you, thank you. Now, before I let you go, I'm going to ask the last question， 就是我也要问最后一个问题，就是这个是先叫汤梅来回答 ，OK？ 那么汤梅又对你的公司了解是蛮多的，你们实质上这过去100多年帮助了好多企业成长，特别是这个发展中国家的企业。那么现在通过这个论坛，首先呢，一个你发现有一达通肖总在这儿，那他呢是建立了网络平台，利用互联网通信技术解决金融问题，在帮着好多中小企业在出口。另外一个呢，昨天你可能没听到，这个文建军，这2个都是汪洋昨天参观的企业，那么他呢在 mobile phone 的 industry 利用网络平台，在整合制造商、供应商、客户，甚至一些中间的协调人、研究开发人员。那么通过这种供应链整合，帮助原来没有办法自己从头做到尾的这些企业呢，加入到这个平台之中在做。那么立丰，我知道你现在是负责立丰 Logistics。那么除此之外，立丰实质上一直是说我在 Orchestra 全球的 supply chain。那么上午还有这个案例，就是商品宅配的这个案例。当你看到这些不同的中国的企业，以不同的方式在供应链上进行创新的时候，可能一个呢是欣慰，说他们在成长在壮大，以前我帮着他们现在这个长得都不错了。另外一个呢，是不是也有一点担心挑战？他们都这么发展起来，自己都能做这么多事情了之后，对于我立眼峰的战略会有什么样的影响？对于我的竞争优势会有什么影响
？OK，Thank you, Professor. 这个我用英文答了。And in fact, it's a very long question.
Yeah.
So I choose to answer in a quick way.
Yeah.
I think the first thing we want to answer is Li and Feng is we want to be a company of another 100 years. So we started from Qingqiao, and we want to end up well beyond year 3000. So that's our plan. So to be a company like this, change our executive thinking. So number one, my boss is not always want us to make most money. We have actually every day affect 400,000 families in the world, because we have 15,000 suppliers around the world, and each of them have multiple factories and all the workers working in the factories. So we have a responsibility, over so many families in the world. I just want to mention one example here. I don't know whether you remember in Bangladesh, Wanjalai. 1 year ago, there's a factory collapse and killed 300 people. And there is another factory 3 months later. They are on ablaze, they're on fire, and they kill 500 people. And what happened? A lot of the companies who actually give contracts to these factories in Bangladesh, they told Li and Feng they want to cancel all the orders in Bangladesh because they can't bear with this kind of consequences. And now, this can be a factory in China, this can be a factory in everywhere. But what at that time our company did, is we asked all the customers, don't leave. Because that's actually when the country needs them most. Bangladesh is very fragile. All the people are working on very low cost manufacturing. And we know all the customers can cancel orders like tomorrow And if they cancel orders, the whole country collapses because all the exports, all the GDPs are really on garment manufacturing. So instead, we asked all the customers to set up a $100 million fund to help the factory owners to improve their environments and then train them how to do safety within these environments. And I think this is a responsibility for supply chain leaders. Not only to look at cost savings, but to champion social cause. And to look at all the families, all the people in this supply chain, they have a living there. So we look at sustainability, which is actually one of the most powerful ways to tie all the stakeholders together. Because companies, in this supply chain, when you talk about money, it's very sensitive. So how many pence you can cut, how many percent you can reduce. But when you talk about how to protect people's life, how to take care of family, and how to save trees, how to take poison out from the earth, I think everybody will come in and say, let's do it. Okay. So I think this is a big area that we will encourage all the supply chain leaders to collaborate and improve the supply chains.
Thank you. With that, we will have to conclude this panel discussion.